This is The Comms Exchange, a podcast by 3090 Marketing. Each episode, we sit down with colleagues, leaders, and changemakers to share stories and lessons from the field of community and economic development. Together, we explore how communications shapes strategy, builds trust, and drives momentum because every project, every partnership, every breakthrough begins the same way, with a conversation. Hello, and welcome to The Comms Exchange. I'm Rachel Ledet.
And I'm Christianne Brunini.
And today we are talking with someone who sits right at the center of how modern construction companies are communicating, growing, and building trust.
We're excited to welcome Brandi Bailey at Snyder Construction Group, a leader who's built a strategic business development platform that highlights the real impact that strong communications can have.
Snyder has been in a serious growth chapter, competing in new markets and in diverse opportunities. And Brandi has played a major role in clarifying that message and tightening their internal engine.
And I'm happy to say that Brandi has been a longtime friend of mine, and we've worked together on numerous projects. So welcome today, Brandi. We're excited to hear about how things are going at Snyder Construction Group and how you have made the transition from being a commercial interior designer to business development at a construction firm.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with both of you. I love hearing you guys kind of talk about our company and the words that you use to talk about us, from partnerships to strategy to growth mode and all these different things. So fun to be here. I'm excited to do this with you guys. And yeah, I call myself a recovering interior designer. So I spent the first 15 years of my career working in architecture, working as a commercial designer. So now I am VP of Strategic Development here at Snyder, and it kind of seems like a lifetime ago that I did that. But yeah, that is definitely what got me into the design and construction development business and how I kind of made my way to Snyder 5 years ago.
So how did you make that final leap? Like, what brought you to make that move?
So I worked at a firm. I'm in Springfield, Missouri, Southwest Missouri. So I worked at a firm for about 13 or 14 years right after college. Great people. We still work for them now. They experienced a tremendous amount of growth. But I realized that, 13 or 14 years into my career, there was a whole front end piece of the process that I didn't really know and I wasn't really exposed to. The partners in that firm were really engaged and really led, prospecting, finding new clients, negotiating contracts, interviewing, kind of what that front end feasibility piece looks like. And so I realized that there was a portion of my career that I really felt like I needed, or professional development that I needed to kind of hone in on and learn. So that took me to another firm here in Springfield that had been around for a long time, commercial firm. They had 3 offices, St. Louis, Springfield, and Northwest Arkansas, and they were really looking to grow their interiors department. So myself and another well-known interior designer out of St. Louis came on board with that firm. Pretty quickly, within maybe the first year of working at that firm, they were acquired by Clayco, a large construction company out of St. Louis. So I went from working at my first firm of 20 to 25 people to then my second architecture firm of about 100. And all of a sudden I worked for a real giant in construction and architecture, which was awesome, but it also created a lot of change. And so after that first merger and acquisition, we then went through another acquisition with a team out of Chicago. So there was just a constant churn of change there. It was amazing though, because I learned a tremendous amount of the things that where I wanted to grow, I grew. I was definitely stretched, asked to do a lot of different things that were maybe outside of really my comfort zone. Pretty okay with that. But after working there for a couple of years, we had changed names twice. We no longer had any local ownership or really local leadership. And so I was out there hustling, doing business development really by necessity. I knew that if we were going to keep an office of 15 or 18 people busy, that we had to have work coming in. And so myself and one of the architects I work with were really out there trying to get work. And no one had really assigned me the role of business development, but I just knew we needed work. And so I've started doing that. And in that process, Dusty Emmerich, the president of Snyder, and I had worked for many years with Snyder on lots of different projects and knew their team and their leadership. And he said, hey, would you consider coming to do this for us? We would really like to create this position of business development and have somebody, do this. And so when I first started talking to Dusty about this idea, I was kind of like, I don't know, sales in a construction company, like that sounds terrible. Do I really want to do that? I'm an interior designer, and so often we associate so much of who we are as a person with what we do professionally. And they oftentimes just blend. And especially if you're really ambitious and driven. I mean, for me, I really saw my work as part of who I am, and I still do. And so it took me a little bit of time to warm up to the idea. But the more that I met with Dusty and his team, and the more I started thinking about what do I love and what I do day to day, it wasn't really the interior design anymore. It was really, connecting with people, finding out what their needs are. How can I help them solve a problem? Of course, I love the pursuit of a project. I'm competitive by nature. And so that part of it is fun. But I really realized that, this business development piece and this networking communications piece is something I really love. And I think I'm good at it. So it was, at that point, it was easier for me to walk away from the interior designer path and look at what's next for me in my career. So I say all that to say that really shaped, I think, my ability to connect with people. And even though, being an interior designer was not sales, I was still selling my idea. I still had to be curious. I still had to ask questions before I started solving problems. I needed to have a story. I needed to understand what someone's challenges were to be able to design their space. And so really the process is fairly similar, in what I do now. I'm just not really designing built space anymore. I'm, helping lead a company with strategy and helping connect people in different communities with the right needs or the right solutions for their needs. So I kind of get to use my left and right side of my brain, which I love because I am creative by nature, but I'm also very driven by data and narrative and making sure that we understand why we're doing something and kind of what the plan is to get us there. So all that to say, now I'm in this role. I've been here 5 years. And I think that piece of being a designer really helped shape how I could come into this role and how I could help serve, this company and my community at a large. So yeah, it's been fun.
I think that people assume that leadership at a construction company or even a business development role in leadership is this like straight and narrow path. And sometimes it is just organic, as you mentioned, where it's relationship driven. You're meeting people, you're out in the world out of a necessity to help your firm succeed. And then the right people kind of fall to the top when it comes to those things. So I love that there's a story there about how Dusty sought you out and that you kind of had to weigh your life path because we don't always know exactly where we're going to end up. But I love that you said your creativity and understanding the connection part of a client, which really is what business development is really what helped you. Is there anything else that you can think of where your creative side with planning or just the design element has served you well in your current role?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are times when I can authentically sit across the table from somebody and say, look, I've been on the other side of this. I know what it's like to be on the design team or sitting with an owner when you're trying to qualify the right contractor. You're going through pre-construction and you're budgeting and you're trying to decide who you're going to partner with. And I know all the struggles that come from that. So I think I can authentically say I've been there, and I have a lot of experience with a lot of different construction companies over the years. And so I think being able to empathize with them a little bit in what their process is can be helpful. I think that also, for me, I don't do any design work for our company or for our clients or anything like that. But there is a piece of me sometimes that when I'm in a meeting, like we were looking at stone and brick colors and talking about budget the other day, and I'm all biting my tongue because, I'm not the designer on the project. But at the same time, if someone values my input or if an architect says, hey, what do you think about this? Because they know my history, I do sometimes give my opinion in that. But I think for me, I've had to really realize where is my value in this process? And if I can serve the project or the client by helping them brainstorm or say, hey, if you're looking for XYZ thing, let me connect you to so-and-so. I mean, I still have many, many contacts in materials and finishes and furniture suppliers and different ideas that I brought as a designer to the table that can still serve the clients in the project now. We might have an estimator that says, hey, we need an acoustical product. We're looking at these couple things. Do you have any experience? So, they still utilize me in that way, but I definitely don't do interior design for projects anymore. But I will serve the project any way I can, if it's helpful. As far as the business outside of just like the projects, I think bringing a creative, maybe a different idea to how do we expose people to our brand. I definitely hear all the time in the market, it's so cool that you do this. We don't see other contractors doing that. Or I've never seen a construction company involved in something like this. And so I kind of utilize some of the tactics that I learned from manufacturers, sales reps, or different vendors when I was in interiors to call on architecture and design firms now. It's fun to be on the other side and be able to partner with architecture firms where before they were my competition, if you will, or they were other designers and architects in the community, but I didn't get the chance for them to be a client. And so I will host in a couple of weeks, about twice a year, I gather manufacturers reps in the interiors department and architectural products. And I host a design community event, and it's me as the construction company and then a couple of interiors products and a couple of architecture products, and we bring both the architecture and interior design community together. There's not a professional organization in our area to bring them all together like that, and it's rare that it happens. And people, the first one we did in the spring, we had about 50 people in attendance, and they loved it. They got to see people that they maybe work adjacent to but not always get to be invited to events like that. And so I'm really looking for how can I, obviously I want to get in front of people because of my role, but also how can I bring kind of an interesting creative dynamic to something that people might not normally think of a construction company doing or hosting. So I like to kind of test different theories and different ideas. People energize me. So anytime I can plan an event or be a part of something that's going to get me talking to people, that's really always my goal. We can pay for print advertising and billboards and stuff, but for me, if I can get into a conversation with somebody, that's where I find the most success in my role.
Well, you are definitely a natural communicator and a natural connector. And so all of this plays into absolutely how did you not start in business development? But we can certainly relate to that having been on the inside and being able to sit on both sides of the table and really understand, because at 3090, all the executive team has been internal at the organizations that we serve. And so it leads to a different kind of conversation and creativity and discussion. So can certainly appreciate that. So now that we are at Snyder, and Snyder is deeply rooted in the Midwest, and it is a family-owned company, and it has family-owned values in its at its core. So as you are expanding outward and moving into more markets, how are you maintaining the authenticity of that positioning?
I think that is still a work in progress, and I think it always will be. I think making sure that we're always checking back with ourselves as the company, the leadership team, and most importantly, our people, making sure that there's alignment and that we're asking and not just asking for feedback, but also listening to it. And so as we have looked to grow, so I work for a little bit about the family. The founder was Larry Snyder, founded in the 70s here in Southwest Missouri. It's now the second generation of the family running the company, and potentially at some point, maybe third generation. The owners have a son that's in construction. He may or may not come to work for the company someday, but I say that because construction is really in their roots, both the Snyders and the Emirates, who were also from Joplin. So been a long time construction company. We have deep roots here. I think our history certainly matters, but we're a fairly young leadership team. And so as we look at where do we want to go and how do we want to get there, we know that there's only 7 of us at the leadership table. And so you're going to have to utilize, and we want to utilize those people within our company that want to lean in, want to be a part of the growth. And so it's really, I think, obviously we want to look at the research and data of where is their growth aligned with what type of projects we deliver, where are we really hitting in our strike zone. We don't want to grow just for the sake of growth and expansion. It's not about the volume that we do or how many states we're working in or how many projects we have. It's really about, can we find alignment with the right partners who are looking for a builder like us to deliver mutually beneficial projects. I mean, we want it to be good for our company. We want it to be good for the clients and the subs. We want those projects to be good for the community. So I think for us, and I've had to learn this, I've been here 5 years and I feel like I'm still kind of honing in on this strategy piece is, choosing things that really align with our company and knowing when something maybe isn't the right fit for us. And I'm in sales. Don't get me wrong. I want to chase everything, right? But like I have learned that there's only so many resources, and I want my team to trust me when I bring something in and tell them what I think the probability is. So I've had to craft my skill set, and I came from interior design. And so it's very different. And so I've been learning all along the way, but I think we, as you guys are an EOS company, and for people who don't know what that is, it's entrepreneurial operating systems. And it's really it's a platform that lots of companies use across any different industries. And it's really about how do we run efficiently? How do we make sure we have the right people in the right seats? What are our core values? Are we living by them? Are we hiring people by them? Are we saying goodbye to people by them when it's time? Are we saying yes to certain clients or no to certain prospects when they check back with our core values? So we didn't have core values when I first started. We had a mission, right? And we had kind of a tagline of building partnerships that last. But if you were to say to us, what are the core values of the company? We didn't have those. And so that's something that we've created in the last couple of years. Our core values are build up, build out, build within. And we really feel like building up is the literal translation of what we do. We're building buildings, but we're also building up our people, building up the next generation of builders. Build out. It's important for us to continue to grow in the right markets. It's important for us to be a part of our communities and those connections. And then the build within, we can sit here and do these things all day long, but like if we're not whole within ourselves and if we're not well, we're not going to be able to serve others. And so those core values of build up, build out, build within really for me are checks and balances. Does this align with what we're doing? Does this align with our core values? And we are almost a 50-year-old company. So we have great roots and a great reputation, but looking at new markets, it's really, can we scale this part of our business, and does it still align with our values, and will it make our people happy and motivated to go to work every day? And so that's, I think, kind of at a high level how we look at market expansion and new markets. And hey, there's going to be times when we don't get it right. We're going to go down the road and we're going to think that this idea is great, and then we're going to realize for whatever reason it's not. And I think that's part of being open to growth and to know when is okay to say, hey, we tried this, but it didn't work, and obviously we don't do too much of that. But I think when you're in a growth mode, there is a little bit of that discovery that's necessary to really figure out what is right for us, what feels right, what are we getting good feedback on, and maybe what doesn't.
Well, and risk is so much part of growth, right? And I love that you brought up EOS because we've had a past episode that talks about EOS and how it touches so much on the culture side, which obviously for us leads so much into the marketing communication side and just making sure that authenticity is apparent in each of those avenues. So I love that you kind of brought up risk, because no one grows without risk. And I want to bring up something that was pretty risky, that's a little more on the personal side, less of the Snyder side with you. And I just want to pick your brain a little bit about this sort of interesting topic, because I don't know the story as well as Christianne does, but you took a role working in China for a year without any language skills. And we find that to be fascinating and also really brave and really risky. And we want to know if having that risk tolerance and that sense of adventure helps your experience when you are approaching growth of any kind or growth into new markets.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like a lifetime ago. In fact, when I was talking to Chris about it and she brought it up, I was like, why would we even talk about that? But honestly, the more I percolated on it and I kind of thought, how does it even relate to what I do? And did it teach me anything that has really carried with me all these years? And it was a good little session to think on, because it certainly has. I mean, it's taught me that you can do a lot and learn a lot with nonverbal cues, right? I went to live in China when I was 6 or 8 months into my first job. So I graduated college, went to work. I was on a 6-month kind of trial period when they hired me. In fact, at the end of that 6 months, I didn't even know if they were going to hire me. I was unsure if my boss even thought I did a good job. And so they brought me into the conference room and they said, okay, well, we're going to, you're on full time. And also, will you go live and work in China? And I said, where? And they said China. It's like, okay, that's not what I thought you were going to say. And so I was young, I was 22 maybe, single. I didn't really have anything keeping me here. And so I said, sure. I didn't speak Chinese. I was in mainland China, about an hour and a half in from Hong Kong. So very non-Westernized area. Signs were not dual language. Lots and lots of people had never seen a Westerner, had never, they didn't speak English in most places that I went. Very few people were bilingual or knew English. And so I just kind of made it work. I learned a lot about being intuitive and communicating through ways other than words. Also, just kind of understanding your place in the world. I was fairly young and probably a little bit arrogant. And so maybe that served me well because I was brave and I didn't know what I didn't know to be scared or nervous. But I also learned that, you kind of sometimes have to step into things before you know all the answers. And even when you're going through the process, sometimes you still won't know all the answers and you still have to continue to show up and be curious and, lean on people for support and ask questions when you don't know. And yeah, I made it work. So a lot of like maybe observation before action. I was in a whole new culture, very different than America. And it was really interesting. But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from that was that I learned to be really intuitive. What are people not saying? Or what are they saying? And I can't understand them because I don't speak their language, and that probably has stuck with me and been a really good skill set for me. In not just business, but in life in general.
So what people say and don't say definitely leads into branding. And so at Snyder, how do you, in a market that is very, very focused on price and performance, how do you differentiate and build a brand that is differentiated in the market?
Yeah. So that's a big question. I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. When I came to Snyder, I think I told you that, I had worked with them for many years on lots of different projects, and I had worked with a lot of other contractors as well. And I think that's one reason why when I looked to make a career change, and I had some different job offers outside of Snyder, some that would have kept me in design. I actually was talking to another contractor in our area to go to work for them doing a similar role. But what I knew was that they have a really solid team that felt like partners. And I remembered feeling that through the design process and through the projects I had worked on with them. And not just did I feel like I had gained trust with them, but I liked them. I liked the ownership. I liked the leadership team. I liked the team that was in the field and the project managers. And there was definitely a cultural feel. It was not just about what is their experience, in the project world, but what are these people like? What is this process going to feel like going through it? And so I think I can say that now that I'm working here and say, hey, when I was on your side, and kind of say those things that I just said, but it's authentic because I really do feel like that was a big reason why I came to work for Snyder, because I believe in what they're doing and the people that are doing it. We also take a lot of feedback from not only our staff, which I've mentioned, but also our partners, as in architects, engineers, clients, subcontractors, people within the community. So it's important to me to get feedback and then do something with it. So not only do we do like client surveys, but we send those out to any partner who might touch the project. I'm constantly asking, where do you see us position in the market? What is the feedback you hear of us? And so now that AI is so popular, I use AI to track a lot of that information. Really, since the onset of me coming here, I started being really curious and drawing information from all of these different people that I could look at. How do people describe working with us? Because frankly, it doesn't matter what I say. I'm not on the other end anymore. It matters what do people think about us and what is their experience. And so the things that we most commonly hear are collaborative, steady, trustworthy, proactive, good communicators. And I would say those things feel really right to our team. So I think from a branding perspective, it's important that you're doing the storytelling as to what are we building in the market, right? So that people know if you're building apartments or hospitals, you got to have the storytelling piece about what do we build. But I think it's more than just the experience. I think it's also how does the process go? Who are the people building it? Because at the end of the day, there's going to be 5 other contractors right out this door that can build the project and be successful at it. It's really, what does that process look like? How are you going to like working with us? And what are we going to do after we turn over the keys? What is our commitment to you as the client and to the project? So my job is really, as a strategist and a marketer and branding ambassador, to make sure that I'm telling that story. And not only that I'm telling it from my seat and from what you see formally in communication from us, but that we are trickling that information to our staff and making sure that they also feel like they understand the story of who we are. Because there's really no better mouthpiece than the 50 people we have out in the community as project managers and superintendents and interns and project coordinators. I mean, they're the ones that are really touching the community and talking to our clients every day, all day. So it's kind of twofold. I think of my position as very external, but I think I've learned over the years of being here that the internal messaging for our team is just as important than what we're doing externally. And not just from a recruitment and retention, but also, like I said, to make sure that they understand who we are and that they can also be out telling that story to our clients and in the community.
We certainly love the idea that everyone in any company is a brand ambassador, because the world is interacting with those people tenfold, 50-fold, as you said, as opposed to the leadership team or the business developer or the marketer. So having that continuity and really an educational path to getting to that continuity is so important. So that's a really good point. I want to switch gears again just a tiny bit, because you have really delved into and continue to build a strong reputation in the affordable housing space and focused on that as a target audience for you to continue building projects. Can you tell us about that focus, why you have decided that that is one of your key focus areas, and about the growth that you're planning for in the affordable housing sector?
Yeah. So when I was a designer, I worked on a couple of LIHTC projects. So for those who are listening that don't know what that is, it's an acronym, LIHTC. We call it LIHTC, and it means low income housing tax credits. I didn't even know what LIHTC was when I was a designer. I heard the term and I kind of understood that we were doing something a little bit different in housing, but I probably worked on 5 or 6 different projects. And I understood the premise. I'm probably not giving myself quite enough credit, but not like I do now. So when I came to Snyder, I knew that we did affordable housing tax credit work, but it had never been something that we had really leaned into trying to expand in different markets. We have done it for probably 30 of the nearly 50 years that we've been a company. And it had really been a referral basis type business, some repeat clients, but we really started looking at how can we lean in? We're already known in that market because we've done so much work over the years, but how can we really lean in and become more strategic around gaining new partnerships and then helping them build their pipeline and servicing those clients. So as I've grown in my position here, I have, I go to a lot of affordable housing conferences. I try to align myself with the right people outside of just the developers, right? Sometimes it's hard to get in front of your target, who is probably the developer. So, getting to know brokers and syndicators and insurance people and CPAs and attorneys, really anybody who's touching the process in affordable, and not doing that in a way that's self-serving, going to the conferences or making time to have these one-on-one calls with them. I'm always looking for, how can I help connect you, right? Because ultimately I too want you to be a connector for me, but there might be a syndicator who's looking for some new clients in a certain market that I work in, and they might be really they might be doing really well in a certain market, but they're trying to get into a different market. And so I'm always looking at, how can I be a connector for you? So affordable housing is a big portion of what we do. Not only is it important for communities to continue to build the inventory of affordable housing, but it has been a really rewarding process for us because we do not only new construction, but also AC rehab. And so we have gone into lots of different communities and done hundreds of units where we're converting an entire public housing authority's portfolio. And I have been able to see firsthand, Christianne and I have been on some tours together in some of these communities where we can see what life is like living there before these communities are renovated. And then the pride that people take in where they live. And if we look at just our needs as humans, right? Housing is a basic need. And if you don't have stable, safe housing, we know all of the other factors that can be affected by that, from your health your mental and physical health to your overall happiness. So for me, I really love being able to see the transformation when we do a project like that. Obviously, we love new construction projects too, but we do kind of specialize in rehab type renovation projects. And so affordable housing is a big portion of what we do. We do about 100 to 120 million a year, and over half of that work is in housing, and a good portion of that is in affordable housing. So I'm certainly looking to continue to grow our business in affordable housing, looking for the right developers who are really looking to do the process in a way that we see as valuable, and in lots of different markets. I mean, we're currently working in 6 different states. 5 of those 6 we're doing affordable housing, and hoping to expand. But again, most of this is not that we're going and setting up shop in North Texas and saying, okay, we want to work here. It's that we've aligned with a developer who's getting an award in that state, and we're going with them because we're their trusted building partner. So yes, for all the affordable housing developers out there listening to this podcast, give me a call.
That's right. Call Brandi. She wants to do it the right way. That's wonderful. And we obviously have a special place in our hearts in the affordable housing sector, and have lots of friends in that arena as well. And certainly believe that people deserve safe, convenient to their life, and prosperous home lives so that they can be the best version of themselves. So that was a wonderful answer. I love that answer.
Thank you.
And it also touches on something that is core to your personality, which is giving back. So you touched on a couple of things there, not only our shared passion for affordable housing, but also the concept of all business development, all business interaction really should be just making friends. I recently had a junior person ask me, well, how do you go about doing that? And I said, well, you just call and you say something helpful. And that's how you become friends. And then when they need you, they know to contact you, and that you can help them, and that you will make those connections. But in addition to that, outside of work, you share that giving self of you, and not only in the group that you talked about earlier, or that coalition that you brought together for the designers, but I know also you've had businesses in the past that have touched on giving back. Your Bulga's baskets, I know I have some in my closet. And I know that you're board chair on a local charity. Tell us a little bit more about how giving back really aligns with your work, and how you move through your process.
Well, I'm glad you asked. I've always had a heart for community. Ever since I was a little girl, my mom will say, like, oh, you used to go call bingo at the local nursing home, which now I would call senior living, not nursing home, but here we are. I digress. So I've always had this very giving part of me, being in service to others. And I think, giving back, whether it's professionally or personally, or however I do it, whatever avenue it's in, it always has, it keeps me grounded in perspective, right? Of how good my life is, and everything that I have, when I can kind of step back and see, okay, this gives me a little perspective that I had a bad day today, but I still get to go home to a family that loves me with a roof over my head. And so, that piece is a big part of it. I'm also a mom. I have a 9-year-old son. His name is Benson. Shout out Benson. He'll love this because he wants to be a YouTuber someday. I think the empathy piece is huge, and not everyone, I understand not everyone's personalities is grounded in empathy, but I think between empathy and perspective, I want to be able to serve my community in ways that are meaningful. So I did have a basket company that kind of started, it was called BB's Bulga Baskets. So my name is Brandi Bailey. My niece calls me BB. And so that's kind of how that came about. Bulga baskets are an African basket, like a market basket, that are woven. So during COVID, I had a friend that was selling Turkish rugs that were one of a kind on a Facebook group. And I thought, what could I do? That sounds kind of fun, right? And in COVID, we didn't have anything better to do. So what could I do that I could bring to my friends and my community that is kind of hard to get, or something they haven't seen, maybe artistic? And so really it started by me sending $500 to this man in Africa. And my friend at the time was like, you're never getting those baskets. There goes your $500. Well, about 6 weeks later, that shipment of baskets showed up. And so that started the company. I started by just doing a small Facebook group, and they would sell hotcakes. And that kind of grew into an actual business where I had a trailer and I would go out and do pop-ups. And though it was fun, it was a lot of time, right? But it wasn't about like making money. That's not why I did that business. It was about bringing something cool to my community. And then the part that I didn't realize was that I was going to be able to really help these African weavers. And so a portion of my sales would go back to the weaving community. In fact, I got a message on WhatsApp today from Clement, the basket guy, and I've since sold that company. There's a couple other ladies here in Springfield who own that company, but I still get messages from him periodically, just kind of seeing what him and his family are up to. There's a weaving community of 90 weavers, and we were able to send money back for them to do healthcare days where they were able to vaccinate or treat for diabetes, malaria. We were able to send money for them to build roads so that even in their rainy season, they could still get to market and, keep their business going of selling their baskets. And we did a lot of Christmas and Easter celebrations. So it was fun. And personally for me, I was able to teach my son, kind of show him what hard work looks like. Even though I have a 9 to 5, if you will, there were sometimes evenings and weekends where I was going to go, be an entrepreneur and I was going to have my own business. And I let him come sell and tag baskets and understand what it meant to run a business. So that's kind of a fun memory. I haven't really thought about BB's Bulga baskets for a while, but it was fun while it lasted. And then I
should have brought mine so that I could show it on camera.
I don't have anything right here, but yeah. And then my board chair position, I'm board chair of Lost and Found Grief Center, which is a grief organization that helps people who've lost someone. And so that's really heavy work, very meaningful, much needed in every community. And so I've been on the board there for 4 years. And this year I'm the board chair, and we're just really making sure that no one grieves alone. So it's very, very rewarding.
Well, my cup is certainly full having listened to you, and you have been very generous with your time today. And we thank you so much for being here. We could talk to you all day, but unfortunately, we must say goodbye. But thank you. Thank you for your time, for your service, for what you do in the community. And we look forward to seeing you at the next dinner or conference. And as you get out and about in the world and tell us all about Snyder.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you guys having me. It's been fun.
Why don't you tell us how to find Snyder?
Okay. So we are Snyder, SNYDERCG.com. And I am also on LinkedIn, Brandi Bailey. I appreciate you asking that. So yeah, I would love to connect with anybody that's working in affordable housing or any other markets. We do a lot outside of housing. We didn't touch on a lot of that today, but I would love to chat if somebody has an opportunity coming up.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Brandi.
Yeah, thank you, ladies.
We really appreciate your time, and we will definitely see you soon.
Sounds good.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to The Comms Exchange, a podcast by 3090 Marketing. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss out on an exciting new episode. We'll be back soon with more stories and strategies from the field, because every breakthrough begins with a conversation.